A young girl who was returning from a concert of her favorite performer disappeared without a trace just 5 minutes from her home. The police, together with volunteers, began a search, and very soon it became clear to them that the solution to this terrible mystery had been right before their eyes all along. Kelly was born on September 7, 1999, in an English city. She had two siblings. When she was little, her parents divorced, and Kelly was left to live with her mother and stepfather. She loved children very much, and even in her school years decided that she wanted to work as a teacher. For this she needed to obtain a pedagogical education. However, for some reason, Kelly did not go to college immediately after school. Instead, she decided to work as a waitress and return to school later. September 2019 was a very busy month for her. She celebrated her 20th birthday and was looking forward to a concert featuring her favorite performer. She even received a job offer as an assistant teacher in a kindergarten, and the interview was scheduled for September 19th, the day after the concert. On the 18th, Kelly and her best friend Monique went to Birmingham, a large city 30 kilometers away, where the concert was set to take place. The girls had a great time, and after the event, at about 10 o'clock in the evening, they decided to meet with a few more friends at a local club. After spending several hours there, the group got ready to go home. Kelly, Monique, and their mutual friend lived in the same area, so they called a taxi. They got to Monique's house, and all three had known each other since early childhood and had been friends since kindergarten. Monique invited Kelly to stay overnight so she wouldn't have to walk home at night, but Kelly decided to go home. She wanted to sleep in her own bed and prepare for the upcoming interview. Although Kelly was a very petite girl, standing about 150 centimeters tall and weighing only 40 kilograms, Monique was still worried about her safety at that time of night. However, when she heard that Kelly would walk her to the door, she said goodbye to them, and the two friends left for Kelly's house. It was about a 20-minute walk. After some time, Monique texted Kelly to ask if she had received the message, but there was no reply. They had separated about 5 minutes from Kelly's house near a telephone booth. Monique decided that Kelly had gone straight to bed and calmed down. The next morning, Monique tried to call her, but there was still no answer. Until the last moment, she thought that Kelly was still sleeping, but as the hours passed, the situation became increasingly tense. In the first half of the day, Kelly's mother entered her room and to her surprise discovered that her daughter was not there. Then she called Monique in the hope that Kelly had stayed overnight with her, but Monique confirmed that Kelly had gone home the night before. After that, Kelly's mother posted on social media wondering if anyone had seen Kelly. None of her friends had contacted her that day. After 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Kelly's mother received a call from the kindergarten where Kelly was supposed to come for an interview, but she never showed up. This alarmed her family even more, as they all knew how much Kelly wanted that job. Kelly's parents contacted Wesley, who had seen her off that night. He told them that he intended to take her home, but he had drunk too much alcohol and was feeling unwell, so they said goodbye and parted ways. He felt guilty for not bringing her home as originally planned, so he joined Kelly's friends and relatives in the search for her. Around the same time, at about 5 o'clock in the evening, her parents decided to contact the police. Along with volunteers, they began to comb the area along the route that Kelly should have taken that night. They learned that she and Wesley had separated near a telephone booth on Wordsworth Avenue. At that time, Kelly was not very drunk and had only about 5 minutes left to walk home. The police decided to split the search into two directions. While volunteers and search teams studied the route from the telephone booth to Kelly's house, other officers, along with Wesley, drove along the path that the two friends had walked. Wesley willingly cooperated, but when asked to provide his smartphone, he flatly refused. The police needed to examine his phone to track their route and time more accurately. Wesley accused the investigators of trying to pin the blame on him since he was the last person to see Kelly that night. He did not want strangers to see his messages and other personal information. However, the detective ultimately convinced him that they were only interested in the geolocation of his smartphone, and he eventually agreed to hand it over. Meanwhile, the first significant find appeared in the park near Wordsworth Avenue. They discovered a backpack containing women's items, and Kelly's friends immediately confirmed that it belonged to her. Inside were her clothes, keys, and a switched-off phone. Shortly after, volunteers and police heard a piercing scream coming from the same park. Kelly's uncle, who was part of the search, decided to inspect a small stream and shone his flashlight into the darkness. He noticed something shiny, and as he approached, he realized it was a human hand with a bracelet. Kelly's body was lying there with her pants and underwear pulled down. The police immediately concluded that the girl had been subjected to violence, and the case was handed over to medical experts. While waiting for the results, detectives decided to scrutinize Wesley since he was the last person to see the victim and appeared quite nervous during conversations with the police. Suspicion was raised by his initial refusal to provide his smartphone. Though he and Kelly had been friends since childhood, it was strange that he was unwilling to assist in her search. An interesting moment arose when detectives managed to unlock his phone. They discovered footage from a local rugby club in the park showing Wesley around 4:20 in the morning. The footage indicated a quarrel between him and Kelly, with her attempting to run away from him. This contradicted his claim that he left Kelly near the telephone booth and went straight home, as the rugby club was located at the opposite end of the park. Consequently, Wesley was arrested, although he had not yet been charged with murder. Investigators assured him they only wanted to clarify details, and he initially behaved quite relaxed. As the police gained access to his smartphone, they found more suspicious information. The geolocation data indicated that he left the park only at 6 in the morning, returning several times until almost noon. Witnesses reported seeing him wandering back and forth in the park that morning, looking lost. Medical experts concluded that Kelly had died from strangulation and had also been subjected to violence. Given this evidence, Wesley became the main suspect, and charges were brought against him. While he continued to deny involvement, police discovered another significant piece of evidence just a few meters from where Kelly's body was found: a bank card belonging to Wesley. During interrogation, all these facts were laid out in front of him, and he realized that there was no point in sticking to his original story. Instead, he concocted a new version of events, claiming that he was very drunk and didn't remember entering the park. He said that at some point, a comic fight broke out, and he jumped on Kelly's back, causing her to fall and hit her head. This explanation contradicted the real facts, as the cause of death was determined to be strangulation, not a head injury. Moreover, under Kelly's nails, they found particles of her own skin, indicating that she had fought back against her attacker. The idea that Wesley could have playfully jumped on Kelly's back was ridiculous, given their height difference. Kelly was about 150 centimeters tall, while Wesley was 185 centimeters. By the time medical experts finished examining the body, they had isolated a DNA sample from the person who had subjected her to violence, which matched Wesley's DNA. Detectives confiscated the clothes he wore that night and sent them to the laboratory, where they found traces of Kelly's DNA and makeup particles that matched the cosmetics in her backpack. When informed of this evidence, Wesley once again changed his story. He claimed that they had consensual sex in the park, but at some point she lost consciousness and died. He asserted that he had not squeezed her neck but had merely checked for a pulse, panicking when he realized she was dead. He then hid her body in the stream and covered it with branches, not knowing what else to do. Detectives dismissed this latest version as an outright fabrication, believing that Wesley was trying to align his story with the facts he had become aware of. However, for the police, it was too late. They had already compiled enough evidence against him. The police felt that all of this no longer mattered. They had substantial evidence, and the case was transferred to court. During the trial, Wesley continued to adhere to the version of events where he claimed he accidentally killed Kelly during intercourse and then acted against her injuries. When asked why he didn't call an ambulance or the police, he stated that he was scared and didn't know how to explain what had happened. The prosecution provided a much more realistic scenario. They argued that night Wesley had begun to pressure Kelly for an intimate relationship, but she had no interest in him that way. She had always considered him a good friend. Being very drunk, Wesley didn't accept her refusal and decided to force his way, which resulted in him subjecting her to violence and strangling her. Afterward, he hid her body, returned home, slept for several hours, and then went back to the park to cover her body with branches. He returned there multiple times, trying to figure out what to do next. The chronology of these events was confirmed by the geolocation data from his phone. The trial attracted widespread attention in the small town, as such crimes were extremely rare there. The story was actively covered on television, and during this time, 5 other girls contacted the police to report that Wesley had harassed and assaulted them. Most of these girls were minors. 3 stated that he had committed depraved acts against them without their consent, while 2 others reported he had subjected them to violence. They had all been afraid to come forward but felt compelled to do so after hearing about Kelly's murder. As a result, Wesley faced 5 additional charges. The jury found him guilty of murdering Kelly in a fairly short time, and in August 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison. He would be eligible for release in 30 years if a special commission deemed him not dangerous to society by that time, at which point he would be 51 years old. After the verdict was announced, participants in the trial noted that Wesley broke the mold of a typical rapist. He was young, had many friends, and never experienced a shortage of female attention. Yet despite all this, he committed crimes against at least 6 girls, one of whom was the friend he had known since childhood. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments and don't forget to like this video. Thanks for watching.